Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 30th day of April, 2019. Well, I'm not going to tell you how many times this has taken me this morning to get started. I don't know. Either the cards don't want to shuffle right, or I drop them, or something. Anyhow, maybe this will be the one, huh? Anyhow, if this is your first time here, this is sort of what happens sometimes. You never know. Anyhow, it's a 3 energy today, giving us the 30th. The last day of the month tomorrow is Beltane or Beltane, however you wish to pronounce it, also known as May Day, depending upon your persuasion. So it's a time of fertility and growth, and we set our intentions during April in a sense, and now we're going to hopefully see some of them start to manifest in May. Let's go ahead and get started and see what we can manifest here, unless I drop the cards again. If I wouldn't take the 13th card, I wouldn't have a problem. I'd just lay 3 out. But I like the randomness of it. So anyhow, well, the moon. So the 18th card of the major arcana, it's a 9 energy. So a sense of completion. Here we have that lobster coming up out of the pool, and that signifies regeneration and rebirth. Perhaps we've come to balance in terms of the dark and light within. We see the 2 dogs representing that, barking at the moon, who's looking quite sternly. But it's sort of held between 2 pillars, isn't it? Or rising between 2 pillars. And we see the path going up to the mountains there. So in a sense, you know, even though the moon can indicate deception, it can also mean an illusion and all of that. It can also mean a new path, a new cycle is beginning. So again, with tomorrow being May 1st, we could indeed say that a new cycle is beginning. Let's do another card, though, see if we can get a little more information about it. You know, when a major card shows up, that's the soul or the higher self tapping us on the shoulder and asking us to pay attention here. So, you know, here's the other thing about cycles. We can get into the flow of it and let it take us where it wants to go, or we can remember that we actually are creators here and we can create where we want to go. And I always find with the April energy that what it's telling us is that we have to take our lives, you know, and do with them what we want them, what we want to do with them, not just sit and allow, you know, being in a boat without a rudder or without oars and just allowing the water to take us wherever. You know, that's really not. I mean, sometimes it's nice to do that, you know, to just sit back and allow and observe and all of that. And there's a time and place for that, certainly. But when you're coming out of winter, I don't know about you, but I always have this sense of urgency to get out and get things done and get things started and get things cleaned up and get things growing again and be part of that process, not just sit back and observe it. I like to have my hands in on it. And so I think that with the moon, you're talking about that really. You're talking about, okay, we've been living in this illusion and now it's time to wake up and to realize that we have more control than we think we do. And we need to take that path of rejuvenation and regeneration and rebirth and make it into something, turn it into something. And maybe we've been doing that this month, and now we're ready to go into the manifestation of it. But let's see what the next card says. Sometimes my hands just don't work in the morning and I cannot shuffle these cards right. And I can shuffle them and I can't pull the one card off. So anyhow, we have the King of Wands. And as you know, if you've been here before, I'm not a fan of the kings. This one's looking back toward the past. So in a sense, the King of Wands, you could be, you know, he can be willful. You can see his little salamander down at the bottom there, representative of a fire elemental. I want to get in there. You can see the dragon there. It's kind of a half dragon, half lion. You can see the Ouroboros down there below him. You can see the lion over here. I mean, if you really look at this card, it's really intricate. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. So I always do this backwards, and I can't. I'm not coordinated. I mean, I'm really not. But there you've got the lion. There you've got the Ouroboros. You can see the salamander or whatever. Usually it's a snake, but here it's a salamander grabbing the tail. Here you have another lion, or it could possibly be a combination of a lion and a dragon. And here you have more Ouroboros up here. And he's holding his staff, and he's looking really intently at something. And given the past, he's probably looking at past manifestation. The wands is an expression of will. It's the fire element. And so with the King of Wands, you're looking at, because it's a court card, you're either looking at an individual, a male authority figure, older man, or again, you're looking at someone who gets things done. He's authority. He has authority, but if he's ill-dignified, he can be authoritarian. But otherwise, he's just somebody that's dynamic and sort of represents the active principle instead of the passive principle. But here I think what he's concerned about is the legacy, and he's concerned about the past, concerned about past manifestation. If we're looking at the moon in terms of rebirth and going into a new cycle, I mean, maybe the king belongs first here. Never be afraid to move your cards around in a reading. They're not meant, I mean, sometimes if you're going to do a reading where your intention is about past, present, and future, or, beginning, middle, and end, or whatever, then I suppose then you wouldn't move them around. So even like if you're using a predetermined complex type of spread, like the Celtic cross or something like that, I think the modified one has like 10 cards, and I personally just like to do my own thing. At most, I'll do a 6-card spread, and I'll start with 3, and then I'll go down. I'll do like 3 at the top, and then 2, and then 1. Or you can do it the other way. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is that each level builds off of the other one. And so I start out with 3, and then I'll look at usually receptive and projective influences would be the second line of just 2, and then the outcome would be the 1, or the 1 could be like a significator. But it was just something that I just thought of one day, and it was just something I wanted to know. And so you can use predetermined spreads, but I usually don't. The only one would be like a 3-card spread. But anyhow, even with those, you can move them around. Sometimes, especially if you get some court cards, or say you get like the, it depends really on the deck. But say you have a like the queen, or not the queen, the empress and the emperor. There are times where the emperor is looking straight on at you. In this particular deck, in Rider-Waite, he looks straight on at the observer, at the reader. But in other decks, he's looking back at the empress. Which sort of, in a sense, you could look at the King of Wands in the same way. He's looking back at the queen. The kings tend to take, I know you don't think, you may not agree with me on this, but I think that the queens, the empress, the queens, the high priestess, the women in the tarot deck actually control the room. The men really are taking their cues from the woman, even though they don't like to admit that. But that's in fact what they're doing. When we come into, we take the sun and we turn the sun into a masculine energy, okay? And we turn the earth into a feminine energy. And so when you're looking at in terms of traditional pagan belief and witch belief and all of that, you look at the sun as the sun god, as the male energy, and then you look at goddess as Gaia, the earth. And so together, they create humanity, and they make creation. Well, it's not that way, really. The sun is not the male god, right? But we look at it that way. We look at the fire energy as dynamic. We look at the earth energy as receptive. And so we then, of course, we have to deify everything because we're not comfortable with our own deification. So we have to think of that as something outside of self, which it isn't, but that's what happened anyhow. But that's what I think of, when I think of the kings in this and all of the male energy, if you want to call it that, the projective energy. It's basically focused on the earth, is it not? It's basically everything comes into form, focuses into form. And what is form? Form is the earth. So I don't know. I just have these strange ideas about directionality and focus. And so if you think about it, the sun focuses its energy onto the earth. And so why wouldn't the king look back at the queen? Why wouldn't it be the focus of the king? So anyhow, let's draw a third card before I get too far out in my interpretations, my esoteric interpretations of things. It's like, what is that woman saying? Well, we have the Four of Wands, and here we're celebrating, aren't we? Four is about structure, foundation, respite. Here we actually have Gebo, the rune Gebo, which is if you're familiar with runes, and hopefully maybe we will even draw Gebo today. But if we do, you'll see it's shaped like an X, and that's what we have above here. The garlands are crossed on top there. You see the castle in the background. You see an arched bridge over there. You've got some people over on the other side there, and the couple is holding their bouquets high in celebration. And again, just like in the moon, you see the two pillars there. We have that same kind of thing here, don't you? So a doorway into a new life, maybe. Since we're talking about cycles, since that's an element of the moon, I have to think that the moon is acting as a transition type of a card here between whatever the king is doing and whatever's happening in the Four of Wands. That maybe since he's looking at the past, maybe we're letting go of some past things. Maybe one cycle has come to a close. Because here you have an older person with the king. Here, we're assuming anyway that the people here are younger, that they're starting out their life together. So the assumption is that we're transitioning again from one thing to another. Maybe from one place in life to another, one experience to another, letting one cycle end and another one beginning. It's just really, and again, being a Mars day, being a 3 energy, it's not something that we just simply want to, allow to happen. We want to have a hand in it. We want to be part of initiating a new cycle. Clearly, these two people come together with intention, in happiness and love and joy, to start something new. And they're doing it in balance and in harmony. So this could be then a passage from, if we want to see the King of Wands as authoritarian, because he can be, but I mean, he can also be someone that's very protective. So it just depends on his mood, I guess, and how he's looking at things and how he feels at any given moment, how he's going to be. But what if he's not? What if we're passing? What if this is telling us? Because here you have, if we put him on this side, he's on the side of the darker colored dog. So if we put him and we represent him as the dark side of self, or the shadow side of self, or maybe something that maybe is not really useful to us. And so now we're into a new cycle. We're going to let this go and maybe move into something that's more balanced and harmonious, where we can think about somebody other than ourselves. Because you see, he's not even looking us in the eye, is he? He's just concerned with his own thing and his own legacy. But the moon is suggesting that there's something hidden about that as well. But let's do a rune and see what it has to say. Yeah, I just get this feeling that it's like a Degas. Oh, I hope I draw Degas. Degas looks like a bow tie. But what it is cycles, and it's a new day, and it's one cycle coming to an end and another beginning. So, and I really feel like that's what's happening here, that maybe we're moving away from something that's authoritarian and not really paying attention to the greater aspect of everything, just really concerned with his own stuff. And now we're moving into something that's more harmonious and balanced, and then that's exactly what we're doing because of Bunyo. And Bunyo is the eighth rune of the Elder Futhark. And so we're talking about leadership skills and harmony, but in this way. You see, instead of just two, there are four staffs, there are four poles, four wands, two on either side. Here, things are a whole lot more in balance. Here, the process of achieving that balance is happening. And here it's likely indicative because he's only looking in one direction that we lost that. And so he has a single-minded focus. Whereas we need to understand that that's not going to work if we're going to have any kind of rebirth. And here, our foundation has to be harmonious. 4 is about structure and foundation. And that's harmony and balance. And here we have Bunyo, which is about harmony and peace and fellowship and joy and contentment. You can see Laguz contained within it. You can also see Kenaz reversed. So instead of shining the light outward, we shine the light inward. So in other words, letting spirit envelop us and enlighten us and illuminate us. Well, that's interesting. So we've got, let's see, 9 and 4 is 13, again, which I view as the master witch number. That also is 7, I view as the master witch number. But basically anyone else, any other numerologist would reduce it to 4. But again, that's structure, isn't it? And with this being the 8th rune, so 4 and 8 is 12, right? Is that right? Yeah. So that reduces to 3, aligning with today. Manifestation. So manifesting change, manifesting balance, moving from one cycle, perhaps of a self-oriented focus, into an other-oriented focus. Interesting. Well, clearly Bunyo is aligning with the 4 of wands, isn't it? I want to check something though about Bunyo. I mean, it's typically thought of, I believe, as the wish rune. It comes right after Gebo. It appears right after Gebo. Gebo is the 7th rune. And Bunyo, of course, is an earth element. And clearly it's about relationships, what gives happiness, yes, the wish rune, harmony, contentment, contact with like-minded people, again, and that's aligning well with that. He doesn't seem to align with anyone, does he? Just his own staff, basically, right? So there, he's solitary. Service to self, service versus service to others. Yeah, empathy, fellowship, peace. Interesting transition. I think that we've been talking a lot about that. Last week was about letting go of things, that the illusion that we've been under, and realizing that we have to come together. And so I think that we're seeing a lot of that now. I think that I know prior to this, we were looking at a lot of pentacle cards, and now we seem to be going into both swords and wands, not so much cups, but although they're present. Um, but I think it tells us that there's a progression, at least in terms of our thinking, that maybe we're seeing that this division and all of that we've been living under just isn't workable. And we keep coming back to the notion of our foundation as really one of unity and balanced energy exchange. You look at the garlands up above there in the shape of an X. If we had drawn Gebo, you're talking about balanced energy exchange. See, and then after that comes Bunyo in the Futhark. So after balanced energy exchange comes peace and harmony and contentment and joy and fellowship and empathy when we live in balanced energy exchange with others. And that's really what the Four of Wands is telling us to do. But maybe it's not been our focus. And I think the King of Wands is indicating that. Don't you? I think that that's what it's doing. And then we come to the moon, and higher self is saying, you know what? That's not workable, folks. Let's not do that. Let's come together. Oh, cool. I don't think I have any more to add to this. Yeah, I think that's it. So anyhow, I'll write these down so that I know what they were, so we can refer to them. I've been doing that, keeping track, especially last week, because it just seems so, I've been doing it, but then I really started last week was just so powerful. I don't know. Just such, everything just sort of went one after, all 4 days, just one right after the other. So I'm really trying to maybe look at things that way. Before I noticed, there were obviously some consistencies here, but after last week, maybe something powerful is about to happen, and the cards are starting to show that. I don't know. I'm not about prediction. I'm really more about just energies at the moment. But you can't. Sometimes they get into their own momentum, and you can't ignore it. So I think it makes sense to pay attention to that. So we'll see if it continues. But in any event, I think that's it for today. Thanks so much for stopping by. Again, click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. And check out my blog over there at imsteppingaside.com. And again, the geomancy and the monthly tarot readings, they'll be up here in the next couple of days, probably one today and maybe one tomorrow. But I also have to do another moon one. It moves, but it moves in the middle of the night. So I have to do that today, I guess, in order to get ahead of it. I've been remiss because of the gardening, and I'm really sorry about that. I'm trying to get a handle on it, but at the beginning of the season, I'm starting things inside, and I'm moving some out to the other greenhouse, and it's just been wacky, and trying to unearth the herb garden from last year. It's been interesting. I have these two different sprinklers that are on like a tripod, and they stick up quite a ways off the ground, and I need that. And I had ratchet sprinklers in them, and and one broke, and so it was still in the garden. So I took it out and I put the other one in there. I didn't realize we had a third one. Thank the goddess we did. Because I went and I turned it on yesterday, and it blew the sprinkler off the top. So I had this geyser coming out. That was fun. And so I'm so mad. My husband brought me the other green one, and I'm like, where did that come from? So that one's the one out there now, and it's working. It didn't blow the top off of it. So I don't know what I'm going to do there, but it's every time I turn around, I try to get out there into that. I only get so far, and then I have to stop. So I don't know. Hopefully I'll be able to get that done over the next few days, and I won't have to think about it for a while, but we'll see how that goes anyhow. So hopefully you all can get out and do some things and get your hands in the dirt. It's such a healing experience. But if not, I don't know, go up to a home improvement store, buy a pot, get some dirt, plant something. Trust me, it changes your life. Anyhow, we'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.